what is your favorite metal that you voice in Halo, in any of the Halos?
Oh, oh. Uh, uh, uh. Well, the thing that I love to say the most is unfrickin' believable.
Yeah.
That's my favorite thing to say. I don't know why, but
No,
it
it's a
always
good
has
one,
been.
and that started in,
Yeah.
I believe,
Otherwise,
Halo 3.
probably, yeah. Otherwise, probably kill-tacular. I like kill-tacular
Killtac.
a
That one,
lot.
I'm always trying to get higher than that, but I get a lot of Killtaculars. I enjoy that one a lot too. It
I don't know
feels
why I
good.
like it more than a Killionaire, but I do.
Welcome back, Spartans. Today we have an interview with the one, the only, Jeff Steitzer, the voice of God, multiplayer announcer for Halo. If you don't know who Jeff Steitzer is, I mean, I guess I'm kind of surprised you clicked on the video. But regardless, this is my first time ever doing an interview for YouTube, or an interview at all, and I hope you guys can enjoy getting to know Jeff Steitzer's career, maybe a bit about his life, the good old Bungie days, and just working on Halo as a whole. I truly believe that Jeff Steitzer doesn't get enough recognition for his incredible work in multiplayer gaming, and Halo just wouldn't hit the same without him saying his iconic lines. So that's enough of me. That's just a sweet little intro. If you guys have any other questions or things you would like to know, maybe ask, leave them down in the comments section. I might upload the uncut version of this interview. This one is a very big interview. And yeah, if you guys like content like this, be sure to subscribe, maybe drop a follow, share this video with your friends. Maybe we can have Jen Taylor come on next. Anyways, on with the interview.
Are you on a Mac or a PC?
This is a PC. I've actually never got
Okay.
too into the Macs and whatnot. Is that something you prefer? You like Macintosh versus...
You know, I started out on a PC because that was kind of what it was, and I
Yeah.
thought that the early Apples looked sort of silly. Those pastel, weird sci-fi Jetson-looking things.
Yeah.
But then at a certain point, I don't remember why. I mean, it's stupid because, if your computer crashes, it's so much less expensive to get another PC than to get another Mac because they're so freaking
They've always
overpriced.
been... Yeah,
Plus,
yeah.
oh, they're so expensive, and more, they are going to proprietary accessories. So you've got to buy all their stuff. You can't get anything else, which makes it really kind of annoying as far as I'm concerned.
I've always thought the
But
same
it's what
thing.
I'm on now, and and I don't have to worry about with most of this stuff. It's not like how sometimes on a PC you've got to download stuff in order to make the software work. It pretty much is just, download it, boom, there you go.
Mm.
And because I'm extraordinarily lazy, that ends up being a pretty good solution for me.
Yeah, I mean, if it works, it works. That's what I like to say.
Exactly right. It works.
I've always thought that that was something, especially as like, I'm a pretty big gamer. And like you said, like Macintosh, you have to use their stuff, and not all developers make stuff for Apple and iOS.
Absolutely. No, I understand that. Yeah.
I don't even think you've never been able to play Halo on Mac, have you? That's actually funny too, because I'm sure
I
you know they
don't,
started out as developers for Macintosh, Bungie back in the day.
yeah. Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
really
I don't know. It's very interesting. The fact that Microsoft is now to the point where they're actually offering the game on your computer
Hmm.
as opposed to have an Xbox is like, boy, that's a real sign of how long this thing has been going and how willing they are to try and accommodate the way people are actually living on their computers. So, I mean, it makes
Hmm.
a certain amount of sense to me to go
Yeah.
down that route. And I don't know why. I mean, obviously, the rivalry between Apple and Microsoft is, I'm sure why they haven't made that happen. In fact, it's interesting that you say that because it occurs to me now. There are a couple of games that I'm sort of intrigued with going back to try and play because they're now available on computer, but they don't work on my
Oh,
Mac. And I'll
oh
bet it's
no.
because yeah, I'm sure that's what it is. There was a game that I auditioned for. Well, actually, there was a game that came out called Phantasmagoria. This is before you were born.
Okay. Yeah, I was gonna say I've
And
never heard of it.
long before you were born, it was a horror game where you had to solve puzzles
Okay.
and evade this malevolent, being that was kind of trying to kill you. And then it was so successful, they did a sequel, and I was cast in it as the bad guy, but I had a chance to go off and do a play that I wanted to do, so I went, sorry, I can't do it. And then I left. And eventually that company, which had for a while been very successful, like so many companies, sort of just disappeared.
Mm.
But this is way back. I was talking with Marty O'Donnell about a month ago. We were in Phoenix at a convention, and I hadn't talked to Marty for a long, long time. We'd been on something online. I think we were all signing stuff online one day, Steve and Jen and Marty and me. And we yammered a little bit while we were doing that, but we hadn't really sat down and had a long talk, and we did in Phoenix. And
Huh.
I had no idea that he really got into gaming because of the sequel to Myst. Now, I don't know if you know what Myst is.
I don't think I do. I know what Myth is, obviously, because I'm a huge Bungie
Nope,
fanboy.
this is Myst, and well, it's interesting. Maybe there's some connection. Myst is this extraordinary game. You should check it out because it's back online and you can go on it. It's very weird and cool. It was created by two brothers in Spokane, Washington.
Hmm.
And basically what happens is you start the game and you find yourself dropped into this environment. And I think they may have like redone the visuals over the years because at the time it was just jaw-dropping. You just didn't see 3D visuals like they were doing. But of course now it looks like the early Halo visuals
Oh,
that at the
okay.
time were again like
So it must have been like
mind-blowing, but
later
now
90s, kind of mid 90s,
yeah, I
perhaps.
think it would have been
Okay.
80s, 90s, something like that, a long time ago. But what happens is you're dropped into this environment and there's nobody around, and you've got to figure out what the story of this world is by walking through it.
Wow.
And it is so bizarre. You keep finding these books that sort of come to life with these characters that are saying things, and you have to sort of put it all together. It's an amazing game.
Was it
Well,
like,
Marty had found.
oh, sorry, not to cut you
Go
off.
ahead.
I was gonna say, were
No,
there
no, no. Go
actually
ahead.
like voice acting scenes within that, or was it more like
There were
dialogue
there
would
were
pop up and you
visuals.
would read?
There were visuals. No, there were no voice actors. What you were seeing were like video recordings left by the people who had been there but have now disappeared.
Oh, okay.
Oh, it is so wild. So Marty had a friend who had a son who was about 19 years old, and this kid was talking about these people he was working with, and he brought over a sample of the game that was just about to release, and Marty saw it, and it blew his mind, and that's why he got involved in games.
Wow. So
Because
that's like
before
his
that, he did the
introduction,
initials.
really.
That is his introduction, and he actually ended up working on the sequel, which was called Riven, Riven. Isn't that wild?
I think I've heard him talk about that in an interview that Marty's done before about Riven, because
Could
that was
very
his first
easily
game he
be.
worked on, right?
That was the very first one.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Did you grow up in the Seattle area, or?
No, 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 no. I was born in South Dakota. I was born in
Okay.
Deadwood, South Dakota.
Hmm.
We were only there for 6 months, moved to Sioux Falls, then moved to San Diego. It would have been culture shock, except I was a year old, so I didn't know any different.
Didn't know no better.
And I was there until I was 11 years old. And then we moved from San Diego to Cedar Rapids, Iowa. And that was a culture shock. In San Diego, I'd gone to an elementary school that had closed circuit television learning that went on. My teacher taught the whole school Spanish. It was amazing.
Wow.
And then I went back to Iowa, where it was this old brick building, and it looked like something out of the Victorian era. It wasn't, but it was a real shock. And then I went to college in Minneapolis and in northern Iowa, and then I was going to go to Minneapolis to begin my career, and a friend said, "Oh, come visit out in Seattle." So I drove out in 1975, again, before you were born, and joined a theater company and was seen while I was acting by people doing commercials. That led to me starting to do voice work. And there came a point where I'd been asked to audition. I was running a theater here, and one of the casting people said, "Would you come in and audition for a role?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, why not?" So I did. I didn't get it, and I knew when I saw another actor there that I wasn't going to get it. Wonderful, wonderful actor whose name has slipped my mind right now, but he played the father of the guy who had been crippled and then got his legs back on Lost. I don't know if you ever watched that TV show. The people survive an airplane crash on an island and lots of weird stuff goes
I
on.
was much younger, but I do remember that TV show. Now that you say that,
Yeah, yeah.
Lost in the yeah,
So anyway,
yep.
I saw him walk in and I thought, well, he's getting that. But then afterwards, the casting person said, do you have an agent? And I went, no. And she said, really? And I said, no. And she said, would you like one? And I said, well, I've been thinking that maybe I should do it. But again, I'm so lazy. And she said, do you have anybody in mind? And I said, well, this one agent in town, because my wife, who was then my ex-wife, had been with this group. And she said, well, yeah, I'm sure they'd be delighted to have you, but there's a new person starting out who is sort of a boutique agency, and it might be a real good way for you to go because you'll get more attention. I thought, oh, okay, sure, I'll think about that. Next morning, I got a call from the person who ran that boutique agency, a woman named Topo Swope.
That's an interesting
And
name.
Topo it is. Well, her father was somebody who was very, very famous in his day. His name was John Swope, and he was roommates when they were all young with Henry Fonda and Jimmy Stewart.
Hmm.
And her mother was the actress Dorothy McGuire, probably best known today as the mother in the Disney movie Swiss Family Robinson. Also Peyton Place and did a whole bunch of things. So Topo came from Hollywood. She's in films herself and came up here. I don't know why, and ended up starting a talent agency. And I've kind of been with her pretty much all everywhere since. But it was her who called one day and said, "You got an audition out at the Microsoft campus. They're doing a new game." I said, "Well, what is
Wow.
it?" She said, "It's called Halo."
That's honestly
Yep.
so wild. That's it. Just kind of just the opportunity
It
jumped out at
literally
you.
it fell in my lap. I wasn't looking for it. I had done games before that. Anytime I was offered a game, it was like, great, I love them, because you're playing characters
Yeah,
generally. And I'd done a bunch of kids' games. There was a bunch of things. What was it? Pajama Sam
you were
and
in Pajama
Spy.
Sam.
I was, and in Spy Fox, and there was a third. I can't remember what it is,
I can't
but the
believe
people who
that.
put those games out, yeah, they were all three.
I
And I
never knew
did
you did that
Alien.
game.
Yep,
I'm just
yep,
I'm
I did.
mind blown because I actually when I was a little kid I played a lot of Pajama Sam. I must have been like
I would not.
7 years old or something, 6 years old, playing that on one of my
They
friend's
had names, and I
computers.
can't remember. I'm trying to remember. I can't remember what the name of the games were. One was like, "You are what you eat from your head to your feet." That might have been a somebody else. I can't remember. But yeah, and Spy Fox and stuff. And I played animal characters, and it was great. Had a lot of fun with that. And then I did Aliens versus Predator 2 and two games, No One Lives Forever 1 and 2. And I did something called Motor Madness that Microsoft put out. And,
I think I remember that one
anytime
too.
somebody would ask me for that, it was like, yeah, great, I'll do it. And then this came along, and, I didn't think anything about it. It was fun to audition for. And then
Just
I'm
another
sure
gig, right?
well, it was, and it really was, because nobody knew what it was or what it was going to be. It wasn't anything at that point,
Right.
and it was also very unusual. I've told this story before, so if you've heard it and don't need to hear it, you can stop me. But I was originally cast as Master Chief.
I have heard that before. It's nice to get the confirmation. So that
There's
was the original
absolutely,
casting.
yeah, it was. I got a call from my agent saying, congratulations, you booked the gig. And it was like, oh, okay, what gig? It's like the Halo thing. And I went, oh, okay. What do they want me to do? And it's like, they want you for the character of Master Chief, which I read, but it's like, oh, okay, sure. Why not?
Did you know
So
that that
time's
would be like
passing.
the main character at all, or you just had no
No
idea that?
idea. Hadn't got a
Yeah,
clue. Nope. No,
they
I
keep it
mean,
very
basically,
vague for you
Marty,
guys, huh?
very vague. Well, I mean, it was like everything, you sign NDAs and stuff because
Yeah,
you're not supposed to
right,
talk about any of it.
right.
And Marty had said that everybody auditioned with the same copy. So it's like everybody had auditioned with Master Chief, and everybody had auditioned with some alien, and everybody had, had to scream, which they did at the end of the audition, like they were being blown up or shot or whatever. Well,
Okay.
it's perfectly possible that some of my screaming is on that first game. And, but no, I didn't know anything about it. And so my friends were all going in and recording for it. Like, Jen Taylor, obviously, I called her one day and I said, "Hey, have you been in?" Because I knew she'd been cast.
Yeah.
I said, "Have you been in to record your stuff?" And she was like, "Oh yeah, I did that a couple of weeks ago." And it was like, "Huh,
Ooh.
okay, yeah."
Yeah, kind of
And
like a
so I
bad
said,
sign, like maybe they didn't follow through with you.
well, I said, "So what's going on?" And she said, "I'll check." She said, "Well, good news and bad news. The bad news is Marty, I guess, had second thoughts about entrusting such a large character, an important character, to an actor he'd never worked with before. So he turned to an actor he had worked with before, who was Steve Downes, who was based in Chicago, which is where Bungie had come from. That's where
Makes sense.
that's
Makes
where
sense.
they were there. Totally made sense. I was like, oh. And they said, but they want you in the game. They want you to be the announcer. And it was like, I'm thinking, the announcer? Oh, fuck me. What?
Oh, brother, just the
That
announcer like that.
that'll be so boring just being the announcer.
I know you
Well, then
probably
a friend
thought
of
you would
mine who
only
was
have a few voice lines like start and finish and like weird
I
things
I
like
didn't
that.
know. I had no idea what it was gonna be. And then the guy who was the engineer in the game and a good friend of mine, one of the sound designers, um, Jay Weinland, said, Jeff, they're gonna hear you more than anybody else in the game. And I went, really? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, oh, okay. And again, I didn't care. It was a job. So I went in, I did the job. We did a lot of recording. It was fun, walked away, got my check, forgot all about it, as did we all. Well, because nobody had a clue what was going on.
I mean,
And
that
so,
adds up. I mean, even Bungie
yeah,
themselves, they thought it was like a one and done. They've never been one to be known for sequels per se back then. They were still pretty young as far as like a gaming studio went, and as the stories go, they weren't planning to do a Halo 2.
Marty,
The success of
no,
Halo
not at
is
all.
why that has happened and why we've had these, wonderful, what is it, 20, almost 23 years of Halo now? Oh, almost
23
22.
years. Yeah, it was 20, it was 2001
Hmm.
is when the game came out. So it's 22 years. Yeah.
That's crazy. I
Isn't
was
that crazy? Although
6.
we would have worked on it, I think, up to a year before it. So I think it's been more like 23 for us. But anyway,
Technically.
so yeah, exactly. So, and it was like, oh, okay, that's fine. And then, at a certain point, we got a call and they said, hey, they're going to do another Halo game. They want you back. And it was like, oh, okay, great. You know, and that's kind of what it was. And I still didn't know. And then one day I happened to be reading somewhere, the new Halo game had just come out and it made 175 million dollars in one day.
That was Halo
And
2,
I went,
right?
"What?" I think it was
Yeah.
two.
Yeah.
And it was like, what? You're kidding. And it was like, oh my God. So then I started to think, wow, this is kind of a big deal. But the thing you have to understand is that I didn't have any interaction with the fans because nobody knew who I was. I was just the voice in the game. Nobody knew what a Jeff Steitzer was. Nobody had seen pictures of me. Um, all of which, I didn't think twice about, like, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Who knew?
Were you ever in
And
the
it was
like
only
credited? Like I know I can't remember. Like when you finish the game, there'd usually be like credits of like
I
developers and this and
honestly
that. You're not sure?
I I I don't know that I even was. I don't know. I must have been. I would have thought I would have been, but I don't know.
I mean,
You
it'd
know?
look good on a resume, I assume, or something, right? I mean,
Well,
obviously
not
now
originally
it's
because nobody knew what it was, so it didn't make any difference on a resume for a while, but then after a while, when it became clear that a lot of people knew about it,
yeah.
I started putting it on my resume, and of course, it became the only important thing on my resume.
I'm sure by the
Um,
time
didn't matter
2007 rolled around, it was pretty big because Halo 3, I mean, like you said, 2 had like groundbreaking sales and was becoming like such a big thing. But by the time 3 came out, it was what we would call a cultural
absolutely,
phenomena. Like it was, it
absolutely.
it had the most sales out of like any entertainment product in ever or something when it came out. Like the sales numbers and
Yeah,
figures were just mind blowing, and
yeah.
everyone knew it was Halo was by then. It was like every kid was playing it. Everyone you knew almost. If they played games, they knew what Halo was.
Yeah, it was very, very it was wild, you know? And, in fact, I remember I was in Inherit the Wind on Broadway with Brian Dennehy and Christopher Plummer, and there was a guy in the show named Benjamin Walker who would eventually do the film of, Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter. He played Abraham Lincoln, but he was a young
Okay.
kid. It came out some time ago. It came and went. And he was in his 20s, and then we had like I don't know, 15-year-old kid who had played young Matt Damon in The Departed,
Okay.
and they were both play. And when they both found out at the same time that I was the voice of God in Halo, and they both freaked out. So you had this like, 15, 16-year-old kid, and you had this 27-year-old guy, and they were like, "Oh my God, you're getting" it was so hysterical.
It's
Um,
so wild.
and yeah, it is very, very wild. And then now recently, I've started doing conventions.
Hmm.
So, which I'd never done before. Nobody had ever asked me if I would, and I'm too lazy to go look for work.
Did
So,
like an agent
it's like,
reach
oh,
out to you and say like, "Do you want to try doing some conventions?" Or was that something you sought out
no,
personally?
it was Jen. Jen Taylor and I were having coffee because she lives here in Seattle, and we get together on a fairly regular basis and
Well,
just,
that's nice.
you know, yeah. Oh, she's terrific. I've directed her several times
I was
I'm a director and she's an actress on stage.
right because you guys knew each other prior to Bungie and working together and stuff. You
Yep.
worked together in
Yep.
plays in Seattle, and
Yeah.
she'd been doing acting or
She
whatnot
was
for a
part of the
while.
Seattle, yeah, theater scene, absolutely.
And that it's so
So
it almost
we
feels like a small world for you because like she went to school with Joseph Staten, and he wrote the Halo games and like a lot of the lore,
yeah,
one or two of the books, lead
yeah.
developer there, and it just seems like such a small world. It's kind of wild how that all works.
Well, in Halo 1, almost everybody who voice acted in the game was local to
Mm.
Seattle.
Mm.
Steve was the big exception, and then there were a couple of other people that Marty knew and used from Chicago, which I didn't realize. I thought it was just Steve, but it was mostly Seattle folks. So David Scully, who was Sergeant Johnson,
Oh God, I love
and
David Scully. He's so good at what he does.
yeah,
He really is.
yeah, David was in it, and there were a few other people. I'm spacing on their names right now, and some of them would go on. But after the first one came out, it was crazy because they there was a lot of talk about replacing everybody and bringing in stars.
Oh,
And
I've
yeah,
heard
I
of
only
this through
found this.
Marty. Yeah, for the next game.
Yeah,
Because there were so many
Tom
people who
Cruise
enjoyed it. Yeah,
and
I heard that they had reached out, or their agents had reached out to Bungie or
Julia
Microsoft.
Roberts, I think, were the two for those roles. And it was kind of like, whoa. And Microsoft was, of course, very interested in that. But
Mm.
Marty thought about it and he thought, you know what? The reason the game succeeded was because of the characters that these actors created. It doesn't make sense to replace them. It's not a game that is dependent on stars. And in fact, when you think about it, there are really very few games that have had big names in them. Think about it. It's
I
like,
I can't think of any off the top of my head. You're
exactly.
absolutely right, honestly.
Yeah, I
It's
mean, it's just one of those things where yeah, because they start small, they can't afford stars. They use those people. They become the voices of the characters you love, like Steve.
and then they
It's like,
become
can you
stars
imagine?
because of it.
That's exactly right. That is
Hmm.
exactly right. So, and that was kind of where we found ourselves. So I've been doing gaming conventions, and it was Jen who got me involved. She said, "Do you do conventions?" And I said, "No, I'd love to, but and she said, "Well, would you like me to introduce you to my agent?" I said, "Sure." And like the next day they contacted me, and I was like, "Yeah, let's go."
That's
And I've
so
only
cool.
done two, but I'm doing one in Cleveland this next weekend. I'll be in Cleveland for two
Okay.
days. And then there may be something happening in November. No, November, October. I'm not sure. And then next March, we're all going to be gathering in Seattle, those of us who aren't already, I think it's going to be a big Halo blowout. So it should be Steve, Jen, me, Marty, I think Bruce Thomas, who does the motion capture for Master Chief and is also from Call of Duty. I
Yeah.
mean, it's guy's a big deal. They may reach out to people like Scully, you know, but my impression is it's going to be a big get together of a reunion of Halo folk.
And that's for another
I think that's
convention in Seattle. That sounds like one of the
eh,
coolest Halo panels I've ever heard of. Like the
wouldn't that be
literal
cool?
the literal stars of Halo. Like I'm actually jealous cuz I'm only going to be in Seattle for October cuz I was telling you about the HCS Worlds, which
Yeah,
is the Halo Championship series. They're competing for $1 million
I
and I
can't
can't wait to
believe
go.
nobody. I would be there in a heartbeat, but nobody's ever invited me. But I
Yeah,
mean, that's the thing, it's like all this stuff. It's like the only reason I never did anything prior to this is that nobody ever contacted me. And, I didn't know where to go to, get involved with any of this stuff. Um, and as I
sweet.
say, I'm just ludicrously lazy.
Well, the agent must help a lot with the things like that, honestly.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They take care of all that stuff and they call me when they got something going. But now that I've gotten a taste for it, and it's cool. I mean, I didn't know what cosplay was really
Mm,
until I found myself at this convention in Puyallup, which is outside of Seattle. And this woman walked up, completely dressed and made up as Cortana. And it was kind of like, what? You know,
it looked probably
and
it
it's
looked
like, well,
fantastic too.
pretty impressive. And then down in Phoenix, there were all these people. There was a Master Chief, there was a Cortana, there was a Sergeant Johnson, it was just like, what? They were all traveling as a group.
Oh, that's so
And it's
cool.
like, well, this is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun. It's funny you say that too, because they actually Worlds is like the biggest. I want to say major event. It's the finals of the whole season because they play all year long, and between
Right.
there's your major events, and it's basically like the Super Bowl of the top teams make it into the Worlds, and then they compete for $1 million. But there's so much to do there. I've heard like they have Halo
Yeah.
panels, content creator panels. Last year, Jen and Steve actually went, so like you could meet them, and they were doing signatures and stuff like that, like any other convention. But they also do a
Absolutely. Yeah.
cosplay panel. I believe it's on like the second day, and people compete for like $5,000 to $10,000. And I've never seen the cosplay, the people, the stuff and
Wow.
money that they put into those cosplays are phenomenal. Like they look so good. It's actually like insane.
Yeah.
It looks
That
really
is
fun.
very cool. Yeah. Well, I'll just wait for the phone to ring, I guess.
Well, hopefully, maybe next time you have coffee with Jen, you can see if you all can go together for next year. I think that would be really cool.
Oh, she'd love it. She doesn't actually, I mean, Jen is, well, I can't speak for Jen, but she's not quite as ready to run off and do conventions as Steve or I would be.
Oh,
She
really?
does them.
Yeah, she does them a
Oh
lot.
yeah, and
She, I saw an announcement from her a couple weeks ago. Her and Steve were going to be down on the East Coast somewhere. I forget where specifically,
yeah,
but
somewhere down in the South, I think, isn't it?
yeah, I can't remember where it was. I think it might have been one of the Carolinas or something for one of the conventions. I'm not
Something
sure.
like that. Yeah, they
Or
were down.
Atlanta,
Yeah, I think so.
something like
I think
that.
it might have been. I can't remember, but yeah,
There's a lot of them.
absolutely.
That's
I had no
crazy.
idea. Again, stuff I didn't know. So,
To round
but
back
in
to
finding, I'm delighted to find out. Yeah.
Yeah, to round back to our conversation from probably like 10 minutes ago, it's
Sure.
interesting that your agent told you that you're going to be probably one of the bigger roles or the biggest role in Halo, and you were going to be the announcer. You didn't know what that was going to be. But it's funny knowing like the history of the Halos and how they were developed through the stuff that Bungie has put out and interviews with certain developers and such, that the multiplayer almost didn't happen. And I think that's the only place where your announcer role would have gone into. It was on the cutting room
Absolutely. That's the
floor.
only place you can hear me. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's I mean obviously every Halo gamer or I think a lot of gamers in general are just so happy that multiplayer was never cut from the game. I don't know if Halo would have
Yeah.
been what it was without it. Trying to remember his
It's
name.
like anything. Honestly, it is like anything. There's so much that is completely accidental that goes into anything. If it had
Hmm.
gone this way, instead of this way, might not have worked. If it had, come out sooner or later, it might not have worked. There's so many things that go into something like that to make a phenomenon like
Hmm.
this. And I know that the people who worked on the first several, all the games, I'm sure. I mean, they killed themselves,
Oh yeah.
but especially on that first one because they were making it all up as they went along. And then after a while, it becomes okay, we've got the lore going,
Mhm.
and now we can do it or deviate from it, but at least, the world exists. But it didn't exist when Combat Evolved came out yet.
Yeah.
It was this glimpse of what was going on. It's kind of I was dazzled then and I'm dazzled now. I can't imagine doing what those people did. It was quite remarkable, I think.
Yeah, I 100% agree. It's almost like there's an insane amount of talent that can go into something like that, but just a little bit like a pinch of luck and something like
At
this can
least if
happen,
not
you know?
more. It's several pictures, yeah.
Yeah, that is wow, that is so interesting, honestly. It's cool to
Yeah.
just think about, honestly. Um Wow, I'm surprised I haven't gone on like a spree, like fanboying over being, having the opportunity to talk to the Halo God himself, as we call it. Now, where did that come from? Was that what they
No
started
idea.
casting the name
No
from?
idea.
They call you the God Halo multiplayer announcer, or like,
My understanding is the title is and has always been the voice of God multiplayer announcer.
yeah,
And I'm assuming that is because, like a first person narrator in a book, you are privy to everything. You have knowledge of what's going on everywhere,
mm,
supposedly. Yeah, I never overthought that because it was, I was too busy going down long lists of lines like red team, go, blue team, go,
yeah.
yellow team, go, orange team, that kind of stuff, whatever it was.
No, it makes
And
a lot of sense though. You really are the God of multiplayer. It's like it's a really
well,
cool
you hear it
title
a lot.
too. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. It's probably much more impressive than I actually am, but it's still fun to say and think about. And then I had the most unusual experience about a year ago. Was it about a year ago? I get called in again, and they want to do some recording, and it's like, yeah, what's going on? Well, unbeknownst to me, evidently, because I haven't played Halo Infinite, I'm embarrassed to say,
Oh,
my life has been busy with
busy.
other things, but I guess they've been sort of releasing it in, different sections, and I think they called them chapters, is what I was
Hmm.
told. And I went in to record, and they said, "Well, now in this, your character," and I went, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, wait a minute, character? I'm not a character." And they went, "Oh yeah, you are. You're a character. They're what all the Spartans here and there." It's like, well, but nobody ever explained to me that I was a character that
You're
might
more of
have
a
any.
god, No, no,
Well,
but
or just I yell at them, and I guess that is what made me a character. But then we recorded this chapter that sort of had me taking part in the action
yeah,
of what was going on, which was very strange,
it
you know. And
certainly
my first
different.
thought was, yeah,
I was gonna say I know exactly what this is as someone who spends an absurd amount of time playing Halo Infinite or the Halos in general. It was
yeah,
for the new season that had dropped a couple months ago, or now a couple months ago,
yes, yes,
and
that is correct.
I I played the new game mode all night long because honestly, this may sound weird, but it was so cool hearing the different voice lines that you had done throughout the games or when the game would end. And I
Yeah,
had to play until I knew I heard them all because it was random. They just kind of like RNG'd it. It was, it wasn't like specific voice lines for specific things. Like it would end the game and you would have that line where it was like, I always thought I'd have a job, and it was like it made me
that's it.
laugh. I
That's the
loved it. I
thing.
loved it so much. And I don't know if you know what the narrative was, but it was basically a banished
Another
AI
AI was taking
taking
over, right?
over, and yeah, yep, and then
Yeah.
it called it infection because you were infected with a different AI,
Yes.
and your voice lines would stutter or like spaz out robotically. Was that something they
He
did
did
with
do that.
voice? Like, was that
Yeah,
you
well,
doing it,
I
or
don't
was
know
that
because I haven't heard it. I'll tell you. The way we did it when we were recording, it was like I was sort I would like do I
stutter
would
and stuff?
yeah, I would do that kind of. I was trying very much to be like Max Headroom again before your time. Max Headroom was an AI character that had his own television show. It was a
Okay.
very weird live action thing. And this wonderful actor whose name again I can't remember was Max Headroom, but it was like he was sort of animated and he was this like strange, weird, robotic thing on there. So that was kind of what we were trying to do. And then I would go slow and,
You do it
that
so
stuff. And
well. It sounds so good in the game. Like I'm
well, it could very easy. I mean, whether they used what I did or whether they actually just effects it, which they might have done.
It sounds like it
I
could
don't
have
know.
been a blend of the two, just to like perfect it. But
I
like,
suspect it might very well have been. It might very well have been, but it was great fun to do. Do I come back at the end?
it's this ongoing story narrative, for the live service of the multiplayer,
Right.
and I think we'll find out more in another month when the next season comes out. But they're not getting rid of you, Jeff. If they do, I think everyone
Well,
would
that was
have
my
a
first
huge
thought. When I
problem
first
with
went in, I
that.
started reading. When I first went in, I started reading all this thing. I just went,
Uh,
"Are they? Are they getting rid of me?" And I actually asked. I said, "So, am I gone now?" They're like, "Oh no, no, no,
yeah,
no, no,
no,
no!
no, no,
You're
no.
going to be back. You come back." And it was like, okay, but you know, it's the weird thing about doing the game is that people would ask me along the way, it's like, what happens in this one? And I would always have to say, I don't know, because that was never explained to me. So I
Hmm.
would do all my lines with no knowledge of what was going on in the game. And in fact, when the flood was first introduced and suddenly we were talking about zombies and things, I remember I was doing the lines and I came to them and it's like, wait a minute. Are are there zombies in this game? And they were like, yeah, 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 that's right.
Space
It was like,
zombies.
exactly, exactly. But it was so bizarre because, and I think actually then there was something else. I remember asking Jen, and God love her, she takes, her responsibilities as somebody who is privy to certain things very serious. And there were things she would not tell me. She would not tell me what was going on. For instance, in Infinite, because I knew where things had left off with 5, but then she did not tell me. I said, well, what happened? She said, I really can't talk about it. And I'm going, Jen, I'm in the game with you. And it's like,
She's
well,
like,
then
break your
I'm gonna have
NDA,
to ask.
damn it! Like, I
But
won't tell.
I understood. I understood completely. And I have to say, I mean, whenever we would go in and record and stuff, the people were always so amazingly nice
Yeah,
because so many of the people who are doing it now are fans themselves. The people who are that I work with are doing this job because 20 years ago they got excited as fans with playing the game.
yeah.
So they're
That's
like super fun. And now they're actually, they have their hands on the controls and they are so conscious of, trying to make that they want it to be phenomenal.
no, I can see that too. They honestly, as much as my gamer rage comes out sometimes when I'm playing, streaming, or yeah, I don't know, sometimes maybe making videos or whatnot. I wouldn't play the game
Yeah.
every day if it wasn't honestly just such a well crafted like product of love. Like you can really see how hard they've tried. 343's learned from
Oh,
some
yeah.
of their
Oh, yeah.
trial and mistakes and this and that. And Infinite is, I mean, I truly believe it has the potential to be the best Halo game we've ever had. The things that they've
Wow.
done, and hey, I'm a
Yeah,
huge Bungie fanboy. I love Halo with all my heart.
absolutely.
Been playing it on and off for 18 years now, going on 19 years now, which is, I know it's I was 6 when the first game came out. Give me a break,
Oh,
right?
I've been told by fans, and this has been at conventions. It's like I first played the game when I was 3 years old,
I
and I thought
I,
several things. How did you lift the controller if you were 3 years
I know.
old?
I was just
And
thinking that.
what kind of horrible, irresponsible parents do you have who would let you play this violent game? But I never say that. I just think it as a dad. And then I think, well, I am the father who, when my son wanted to watch the old movie Child's Play about Chucky when he
Mm.
was like 8 years old, I said, "Oh, okay, sure. I look at that now. And my kids have given me a lot of trouble about because I was always like, yeah, I'll be there with you. I'll watch it with you. And if it gets too scary, we can turn it off. But now they claim that their approach is like, you made us watch these things. It's like, no, no,
You
I did
wanted
not.
to, yeah.
You would come and ask what you wanted. Yeah. So, yeah.
That is so funny.
But yeah, there are people who say they've been playing it that long.
I hear the more common one like being 5 or 6 year olds like myself, but like even at that
Yeah.
time, I mean, like I could fathom it, but they would not be good at the game. I mean, it's
You wouldn't think so. But you
you're
know what it is? I think in a lot of instances, they were playing with their dads, and some instances,
that
their
makes
moms.
sense. Yeah.
Which is kinda cool because then it's kinda like, "Okay, we're gonna play together, here we go," and, the parents are probably holding controllers with them, and they get to who knows how it actually went down, but it's kinda cool. It's the thing that I look at, honestly, kinda blows my mind is how so many, uh, siblings, bonded playing the game, how many
Oh yeah.
parents and kids playing the game, how many friends and friendships were made playing this game. It really is staggering to me.
Mm.
I still don't think I quite have a grasp of how big this all is, you know? But I've had people reach out from all over the world, and that blows my mind. You know,
I
it's
I'm
like,
I
gee,
can confirm it has had that much of an impact on people's lives, when
yeah, yeah,
gaming's a
it's
hobby
crazy.
or a passion or just your getaway from the world itself, even when times are stressful or even if times are good and you just want to have a good time, like I said, doing one of your hobbies. And I started young
Well,
with
I know that a
Halo.
lot of
I
what?
remember the first time I played Halo 2. I had an older brother and a younger sister, but my older brother was in high school at the time, and on the weekends all his friends would come over. And we didn't have an Xbox at the time, but all his friends would bring their Xboxes. So we would stack
Sure.
3 Xboxes on top of each other. We would be packed like sardines in our bedroom cuz me and my brother shared a room at the time, and we'd be playing like, what was it, 12 or 16 player LAN party co-op and Halo 2, and we
Yeah.
would play
Yeah.
all night long. And it was honestly so fun, and I was a little kid, so like playing with the high schoolers and stuff, I never did too well. But whenever my friend would sleep over or somebody, like since I had been playing against them and they were better at the game than I
Yeah.
was, my friend couldn't kill me. I was just better, because I was used to playing with people who would destroy me in the video game. But since I had
Yeah,
always
yeah,
had,
yeah.
it was like playing the game on the hardest difficulty. But then when I'd play with someone new or someone like me, I was better than them because of it. So I was like, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And then I got an Xbox
Yeah.
360 and Halo 3 came out. And
Oh, yes.
oh, the story goes, Halo 3 was most literally my childhood. I played that game
Yeah.
probably every day, and it came out when I was 13. So like perfect time for that game to come out. I was that little squeaker
Absolutely.
with their headset on, playing games and stuff. It was so much fun. Like I like I said,
It is
Infinite
amazing.
has potential to be the best Halo game. There are some things that still need to be done in my mind to get it there, but Halo 3 will forever be the best video game that was ever created. Like hands down.
Well, people ask me, what my favorite game is. I always say 3, primarily because I think it's a great game, but also because that was when Marty decamped, and it was the last chance to work with the Bungie folks, who all went off to do Destiny. And
Oh.
I remember when they moved into their new headquarters in downtown Bellevue, Washington, they took over what had been a multiplex theater, movie theater, right in downtown. So I went down one day to visit with Jay, my friend who did the sound stuff, and he took me on a tour through the whole thing. It had all been retrofitted to, not retrofitted, had been redone to become, studios for them to be working on things, to do motion capture, all that kind of stuff. It was very, very impressive, but it was a little sad as well,
Yeah. Yeah,
because
I didn't
it
quite
always
think of
sort of
that.
been, it always been Marty's baby.
That's yeah. I mean, 3
But it was
wasn't the last one that Bungie worked on. So did you go to the new Bungie studio? Obviously ODST. No, you
it was
must have
the
been in
new
you were in ODST as well, no? Or did they just reuse assets
yes,
from Halo 3
yes. No, I actually recorded for ODST,
and
absolutely.
then Reach came along? Were you in the
But
new
I
Bungie studio for that, or
no, that was still at Microsoft, but I think of that as all being part of the same kind of era, you know?
yeah.
So, yeah, and then after that, it was with 4 and 5 and 6 that 343 came in and, it sort of ended up taking a slightly different direction in some respects. But still, I'm blown away by what those folks accomplish. I
Mm.
couldn't do any of what they do.
Yeah, really. I mean, it is a lot of work being a developer, or whether you're coding or doing UI UX or graphic design or any of these things
Can't
that
even
go into it.
imagine.
I know,
But
it's
it's so
crazy.
fun. I was out when we were doing the very first session for Infinite. I went out to a studio in Kirkland,
Hmm.
and everybody was out there. Steve was in town. Bruce was there. He and Jen were doing motion capture. So I got to see what they were doing. And I think that they were going to set up one of the rooms so that it would be like the studio, the way they shoot The Mandalorian with those crazy cameras and the 360-degree stuff so that it isn't added afterwards. It's like right while they're doing it.
Oh, okay.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
I can't. What are they? It's got a name. It's got some. I can't remember exactly what it's called, but the whole room basically becomes the environment. And so you're actually in there performing on what it's going to look like for people watching it. You've seen this, right? Haven't you?
So not like mocap, but like
It's
CGI.
mocap on the characters, but the backgrounds, rather than being done against green screen, they do that with the backgrounds there while they are filming the initial scenes. It's not added afterwards, it's there.
Huh.
Have you not seen this for The Mandalorian?
No,
Check it
I
out
don't
on
think I have.
YouTube.
Yeah. That sounds
They well,
interesting.
I'll see if I can find like one of the things. It's crazy. It is just because the cameras move with the actors. I mean, the background moves with the actors, so that if they're going in one direction, what's on the wall, literally on the screens behind them, is moving, the other direction to help create the impression that, that's all taking place. And then it's really only the additional, whatever the makeup or costume or any of that stuff is that are on the actors that actually gets added later, as I understand it.
That's
It
really
is
surprising because you would think green screen and
unbelievable.
where CGI is at and motion capture and everything, it's honestly so good on its own that I'm surprised they're coming up with new, more immersive experiences and ways of recording these things.
Well, think of it from the actor's point of view. It's like they're no longer going, I'm in the middle of a jungle and there's, that little ball that you're raising above my head.
Mm.
That's the dinosaur that's chasing me. Well, they probably still do that, but it's like now you're in the jungle. Now you're on the planet. Now you
Uh,
are in space. I mean, so from an acting point of view,
it gets you
it's
more
great.
in the groove of
Oh,
like,
yeah.
yeah, I could see why that would
And
really
everybody is
help.
in the same. Yeah, same visual world. I'll see if I can't download one of there because they're like featurettes online on YouTube
Yeah,
where
you can
you
always
see it
share
happen.
those or like take the link and message it to me sometime. I'd love to check that out. That is actually
I
really
will.
cool.
I
I never got
definitely will.
into Star Wars. Are you a big Star Wars fan yourself or
No, not after the second one. And I sort of like parts of the third one. He lost me with the Ewoks. It's like, what the fuck? Teddy bears? It's a
Yeah.
planet of teddy bears? What the hell? And
For
I've never believed that it was always going to be, what we heard back in the day was it was going to be 9 films, but he only announced that after the first one was a hit. I didn't believe for a second that it was true. It's like, you are
yeah.
so full of it, George. But I do remember it was Christmas before the summer it first came out, and I was sitting in a movie theater and the preview came on, and I was like, what the whoa, I got to see this. And the
Yeah.
day it came out, I went to a theater. I believe I was in Minneapolis for some reason. I don't remember why. And I went out to a huge theater. It was like a Cinerama theater in St. Louis Park. So it really was big.
Mm.
And I was there with maybe a dozen people, the only people in the audience, because at that point, nobody knew what it was.
For the first one or the
And
sequel?
the first one.
Oh, okay.
No
Wow.
one knew Star Wars. It was like, what is this? Nobody took it seriously. And then people saw it, realized how much fun it was, lost their minds. Yeah, after that, the next two, when they came out, there were lines around the block, and you
Mm.
had to get your tickets in advance. In Seattle, both the sequels opened, or they closed the Seattle International Film Festival, which every year would close their festival with the big tent pole movie. Poltergeist was one of them. The two
Oh.
Star Wars films that the sequels were ones of them. So they were like big. I think maybe E.T. might have been one of the films. It was before they were sort of in general release or like on the day. So people got very excited about that. I remember going and standing in line way too early in the morning with two friends who were hung over for the second Star Wars film.
That's really
And then I
funny.
remember going into the theater, it was like, "Oh my god, it was like we are on the ice planet," and it's like, it was too much. Yeah, had a visceral reaction to it, but it was interesting.
I
But other
was
than that, no, I'm not a big Star Wars fan. Just because I think it's I don't know. I know a lot of people love it, and that's great. But I just the thing that I loved about the very first one, and the second one departed a little bit, but the first one really was like Raiders of the Lost Ark. It was like the Saturday afternoon matinees that I grew up with. So it's like I remember seeing things like The Crimson Ghost or Flash Gordon. I mean, the original Buster Crab.
Yeah.
They would still play in movie theaters when I was a kid in the 50s, back in the last century. And, you would go and you'd see an episode every week with everything else that they showed, two movies, cartoons, a newsreel, all these crazy things that, you could spend hours at the movie theater. And that they caught the spirit of that. They were just pure fun. And then as they went on and developed this kind of mythology that was supposed to be taken seriously, it's
Yeah.
like, I don't know about that.
I could never get
So anyway,
immersed in Star Wars myself personally. I watched a couple films and I was like, I'm not hooked. I didn't get hooked. And then with Halo, I
I
was like,
got
oh
hooked in the
god, there
first.
has to be a movie sometime, please. It'd be so good. Like Halo
No.
is my Star Wars. Like there's a lot of really
Yeah,
passionate Star Wars fans out there and whatnot. And I
absolutely. And of course, we can all sort of whoever's responsible should be kicked around the block for the collapse of the deal that they once had with Peter Jackson to make the film. He was supposed to do it.
I know. I remember being a kid and all the rumors and stuff flying around. And then there was that short,
It was great.
the short that they put out. It was is that what you would call that? Like a short film? It was, a few minutes long, but it showed off a lot of that
Yeah,
and the props and the stuff that were made for
yeah, yeah.
whatever he was working on. And it's funny. Still to this day, I must have seen a post like probably a month ago tops of talking about like, oh man, I can't believe this movie with him never happened. I mean,
Yeah,
and people
yeah.
still will post and talk about that like 3 minute, 5 minute long, short film or whatnot that had come out that he helped direct and film and be like, it just, the Halo TV show should be like this and stuff like that. And it is
Well, it's kind
interesting.
of amazing that Halo TV series is very expensive.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh
it
my
is a
God. Yeah.
very
The budget on that, wasn't it like, it was, don't quote me on this. It's
in the
been like a
millions.
year. Yeah. It was like 70 million, but like per episode or something.
It
And
was a lot. I don't remember exactly, but it was like so outrageous.
oh my God. I
Um,
know. Like what?
but even then, it doesn't look like it's the same thing Marvel's sort of dealing with right now. It's like their TV shows, um, I think have been, pretty fun, but
Hmm.
they don't look like movies. They look more like movies than a lot of TV series do, but they don't in the long run finally quite look like the movies because they don't have the budgets, you know? And of course, they're also making, if you've got like 6 episodes of Loki, that's 3 full-length films. And
Hmm.
they're not spending the equivalent in the budget of 3 full-length films. They're having to do it with quite a bit less. It still, I think, looks pretty damned impressive.
I'm
But I think that's part of
surprised.
the thing that Halo faces. You know, they don't have unlimited funds, which I think most films would probably give them. Look
Hmm.
at Avatar for heaven, and what he was able to spend. It's
Yeah, I
crazy.
know. What
It's
was the
crazy.
recent one? It wasn't it like 500 million or I think it was like
Oh,
500
more
million
than
for
that,
the
I think.
yeah. It was a
Yeah.
very big number and everyone that's seen it said it was either fantastic or we need another one or even if you didn't like it, you were like it was a good watch. It was a good film.
Yeah.
So like I never heard
I
anything
haven't
bad
seen
about
it
the
yet. I
second
saw the
one.
first one, and
Yeah.
yeah, they're
No,
pretty
same here,
immersive,
same
and
here.
but I didn't, speaking of not getting particularly engaged, I just sort of, it didn't, for you, it was Star Wars, for me, it was Avatar. It's kind of like, you know. I like the actors. I'm a big Sigourney Weaver fan, and um, who's the villain? Steven. Um, my brain today. Steve Lang. Um, wonderful, wonderful actors, but it was just like, oh, okay, that's all right.
Yeah, didn't tickle your fancy, as I'd like to say, right?
Not to
Like,
the same extent. Well, but I mean, it's not like you can't do it. I still remember the first time I saw Terminator 2, you know. Well, Terminator 1 certainly, but Terminator 2 blew my mind. I thought it was amazing.
yeah, those films were really big back then.
Really, really good. Yeah,
Oh yeah.
I thought. Well,
I've watched the
anyway,
Terminators, but I never got super into them, I suppose, either. I don't know. I'm
oh,
not.
back in the day, again, part of it was, you watching Robert, what's his name, melting as the Terminator, and when they had all that ability, it was kind of like, what? It's all, you've got to understand, I go back to a time when people used to visibly fly on wires like
Mm,
Peter Pan on TV, and we were like, I'm good with this. This is cool. Or you'd see certain special effects movies,
mm.
and you look at them now and you go, oh, dear God, it's so clear it's back projection and it's not really good. And oh, that's so a model, and it's so clearly not a very good model, and
Yeah,
nobody on that pirate ship is moving. They're all just little dolls and, all that sort of thing.
things
So I've
slowly
seen it
got
go,
better.
yeah, but I've been around for the whole, you know, sort of evolution of special effects, which I've always loved.
Yeah,
And you look at it now and it's a little bit creepy to not know if what you're watching is real or created in the camera?
yeah.
I mean, I remember when I saw the Shang-Chi movie, the big fight in the bus,
Mm.
and then later, they showed the featurette, and it's like, yeah, that none of that happened. None of that was real. They
Yeah, it's
weren't
just
on streets ever. It was like, what? You know, it's insane what they can do.
I
It's
know.
crazy.
It honestly, it still blows my mind, like even to this day. Like, and they keep making it crazier and more advanced in different ways. Where you're like, if you stopped to
Absolutely.
just like observe and wonder or ponder about how they even went about creating that, it's incredible, honestly.
It is incredible. It really, really is. Well, and I think we're going to see that happening with all of this stuff. It's going to happen with films. There will come a day, I have no doubt, that, you'll sit down to play a game and you will not be playing on the other side of a computer screen. You'll be in the game. You'll be, literally, it won't be an avatar out there. It's like, no, it'll be, the skin you're wearing
I
in the
know.
virtual world. It's coming. It's coming,
I
you
know.
know.
We're already
I wouldn't
seeing
see
bits
it,
and
but
pieces of that with the virtual reality and VR headsets and this and that.
absolutely.
Have you ever used one of those personally, or
I don't know. I don't think I could. I think I'd probably throw up in my,
you probably
on
would.
myself. It'd
I
be too much.
Even myself, like if you use one for like a half an hour, like you get like the motion sickness kind of, and like it's pretty
Yeah,
intensive on your eyes. It's just having a
yeah,
screen pressed against your eyes
yeah,
almost. It's I definitely wouldn't recommend doing it for like long extended periods of time, but it is
yeah.
interesting, and I
Yeah,
it will be interesting to see where it goes in the next few decades, even. You know, like you said,
I'm
it'll
sure it will.
all the stuff we've seen in sci-fi, you're gonna just be like plugging yourself into a video game pretty soon. Like it's gonna be it's pretty impressive.
It's very, very
Um,
cool. Very, very cool.
since we're on the
Well, do
topic
you
of
have any other questions? Do you have any other
yeah,
questions
if
for
you
me?
want to just
I'm afraid
spitfire
I'm
through
probably
some.
gonna have to take off.
Yeah, no, I don't want to take up too much of your time. Again, I appreciate, you sitting down and talking Halo and just having a conversation with me today, Jeff, honestly.
I'm delighted to be here. I'm just kind of I'm getting everything ready for my trip this weekend because I'm not just going to Cleveland. I'm going to go from there on to New York. So I'm actually leaving for about 5 weeks.
Mm,
And so I've got to make sure everything is, taken care of here at home so I can just leave it behind and then go off and have fun,
And
which
is that
is
for two
what
different
I hope.
conventions?
I'm not entirely sure at this point. Right now, I know I'm going to Cleveland. There's the possibility of another one in October, somewhere in New York, but I'm not sure exactly if or when that's going to be nailed down. I
Mm.
hope it is. But I'm also going to be seeing my family members up in Maine. I've got friends down in DC I'm going to go down and see. I'm going to be seeing everybody I've ever known or worked with or,
Mm.
in the New York City area. I've got so many folks that, are pals there. And yeah,
You'll
I've got a lot of folks that I'll be checking in on.
you'll be in my neck of the woods. I'm from Western
Yeah.
Massachusetts. Western
Oh,
Massachusetts,
yeah.
so yeah. I've been here my whole life. The New England is just all I know, you know?
We may have talked about this. Are you close to Pittsfield?
Pittsfield,
Is
Mass?
that,
That's gotta be like a
is it
half an
Matt
hour
or is it
away from here, so is Pittsfield Connecticut or
really?
Mass? Or is there's sometimes
Stockbridge, it's up the road from Stockbridge, Massachusetts.
yeah, it's Pittsfield. Oh, okay, so that's like yeah, that's right next to like Nassau, New Lebanon, like New York.
Yeah,
So that would
yeah.
be that's like an hour away from me. Something like that.
Really?
Not yeah, somewhere around there, yeah. Cuz I live
Where are
in
you
like
in relation to Stockbridge, Lenox, those places?
I'm a little more west. I'm
Are
like
they-
almost in the middle of like Mass, I would say. So like if you've ever,
Okay.
like Springfield is like the big city near there. Um
Yeah.
like the Amherst, Hadley, Northampton, Belchertown kind of area.
Gotcha.
Hmm.
I directed years ago for the Barrington Stage Company, which is in Pittsfield,
Oh, really?
and I had a lot of time. So I got to go down to Stockbridge and run around there, which is great fun, and see the Norman Rockwell Museum and all kinds of stuff. Went to Lenox, and yeah, there are a lot of theaters in that area. It was very, very cool. Beautiful too.
Yeah, it's
Really
really
gorgeous.
really pretty up there. It's a little colder. That's like the more mountainous part of Western
Yeah,
Mass. It's like right on the
yeah,
border of New York, but like I'm like right
yes.
past that. You drive like 45 minutes out and then you get into the valleys, drive another hour, you're in
Amazing.
Boston.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No.
and maybe I'm trying to get down to I want to get to I want to go to Concord on this trip if I can. Just because all the transcendentalists were there, Emerson and Alcott and Thoreau and Hawthorne, the fact that there were all those people in that one place
Mm.
is mind-boggling to me. The whole Eastern Coast, I'm besotted with, probably because I've, not been able to spend nearly as much time there as I would like to. But I did a show some years ago as an actor in Hartford and got to go through uh, Mark Twain's home,
Yeah.
and you just
Yeah.
think this is American literature, it's American history. And that part of the world is so filled with that kind of amazing, you know, just
Yeah,
history.
I
It's
am. Yeah, I
it's
was gonna say out
incredible.
west, you don't see things that are like 300 or 500 years old and stuff like that, and that's like it's
No,
almost
you
like the
no.
norm here. Like
Yeah.
Massachusetts or all of New England is just filled with like so much history. It's kind of like where the country started, most literally. I mean,
It
Plymouth
kind of
in
is.
Mass.
It
It's
absolutely is.
it's
Yeah, yeah.
we got we there's so many places like that around here. We got like old Sturbridge Village where like you can pretend to be like someone from like the 1700s. That's like right near me,
Yeah.
like there's so much cool stuff though. But no, that's really cool
Very
to see
cool.
you're coming to my neck of the woods.
Hmm,
I guess
hmm,
honestly we covered a lot of like the questions that I was gonna be asking. I had,
hmm.
what your start in acting was. I believe we covered that and like how you kind of got into the voice acting for video games, and your first video game ever was Riven, right? Is that where you? No, that was Marty's. You were
No,
saying
no, that was Marty. My first video game, I think it might have been Midtown or Motor City Madness, whatever it was. No, it was the Western Front. And it was weird
okay.
because it was just like regular narration. It was about World War II, and it was a Microsoft thing. I think that was the first game that I did, but it wasn't really the sort of game that I would later do.
Hmm.
Like No One Lives Forever, or Aliens versus Predator, or certainly Halo. And then when I was in New York, I ended up doing a little tiny thing in one of the Grand Theft Autos. I'm in one of those.
Really?
Uh,
That's so
yeah,
interesting. I didn't know you were in Grand Theft Auto or Pajama Sam. That
yeah.
is those are so like
Well,
I wouldn't even
yeah.
think of that. That is so neat. I'm gonna have to.
Well,
You guys, the viewers, you're gonna have to dig that up. Find Jeff Steitzer in those games. We're gonna.
I'm pretty sure if you look on the Internet Movie Database, all my game stuff is on there for some reason. I don't know why, but in the Grand Theft Auto, and I can never remember which one it was. I can't remember which one it was.
Maybe
But
three. Grand Theft Auto
evidently, when you're
3.
when you're driving around, it had a title, but I can never remember the exact title. But when you're driving around, you can like fiddle with the radio,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and one of the stations you can listen to is an old time radio station doing radio dramas. And it was a mystery or a thriller. And I played both the sheriff in this little town and then sort of, New England fisherman sort of person.
Yeah.
And I'm playing two characters. And we did it in New York City, down by NYU, down by the Strand is where we recorded this, maybe a little further down. And I remember there were three other actors, and we all stood at microphones and did it like an old time radio
Oh.
show, which is rather than doing it individually and putting it all together, we just all recorded, I think maybe we did it twice, maybe. But we were standing at our own mic, and yeah, it was time for you to come in there and be, like the sheriff and stuff like that. I would just go ahead and do that, and and then I'd shut up and I'd try to make sure I didn't shuffle my papers too noisily. We were still working with papers back then,
Oh
now.
yeah.
Um, use
So
your
everything's
iPad.
digital now, eh? Like you got like a tablet in front of you in the
So much.
booth or something, or
I've got a screen. I've got a little tiny computer screen.
yeah.
Is what they do, and I go down, and then they sort of like scroll up for me. It's like, wow.
So you just sit there and do your thing, or stand there and do your thing, whatever.
I stand and do my thing, but yes, I do. And then
I've
then they'll stop, and they'll talk about it, and I'll sit down and sort of go la 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 la.
wait for the
It's very
next
fun.
bit. That is wow. That is really
Favorite's like, all
fascinating.
right, let's go on to the next page. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, that's cool
It's
though.
a hoot.
That's let's see. I had written down some main points here. So like, and then the whole Bungie thing, just running into Bungie, you had known people that were casting in it, obviously Jen Taylor, and it just kind of came to you because your agent had found the Microsoft booking or whatnot and
No, I
booked
think
you, or
I don't no, I don't know what the casting process was like. I mean, generally, what they would probably do is they would send out a sheet for what they were looking for,
hmm.
and they send them to the various agents. And now, of course, they could do it all over the country. Back then, it was still, we were in Seattle, so they dealt with Seattle
Localized.
people. Yeah, and they would go like, "Oh, look, they're looking for character people who can maybe do up to 3 characters because that's how they do it." You know, is that uh, um, if you're playing a lot of small roles or something, they will hire you to do 3 or 4 voices on the one contract. But I was just the announcer.
Hmm.
Um, and so your agents will submit that. It's like, here are the guys we think you're probably looking for. And they'll go, okay, yeah, we'll see this person, that person, whatever. And because I'd done some things for Microsoft, I suspect that might have been one of the reasons they had me out, you know?
Yeah, no, that
Marty
makes
probably
sense.
heard all our demos, I would imagine.
Oh yeah, I would imagine
Um,
so.
thing, but I don't know. Because, I never understood the casting process entirely, but basically, the casting people send to the agents the specs, what they're looking for. The agents send back the people they recommend because they'll say, send us like your top three, your top seven, whatever,
Yeah.
especially if they're dealing with a lot of talent agencies. Then they'll go through those and they'll winnow them down and to however many they're willing to look at initially, and then they'll pass those along to the people who are that are doing the project, and they will make the decisions based on the smaller pool after the casting people have been through it.
Hmm. That makes sense.
Yeah, that seems yeah,
Just
yeah.
how
Because I
things
mean,
were
the
done
last thing you
back
want to
then.
yeah, well, it's still the way things are done. I mean,
Yeah.
the difference is, as you say, it's all digital. And we used to go into a studio, one of the studios in Seattle, and you would record your audition. Now they don't need that. You do it from home.
Really?
That's how. Yeah,
So
sure.
I mean, obviously you have to have your own equipment to be able to do auditions and stuff, huh?
If you're a voice actor at a certain level, you're going to have your own studio and your own equipment.
That makes sense.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
you have to. Just because it's a very competitive profession, and
Hmm.
I'm not in my studio right now, obviously, but I have one here,
Oh yeah.
and mostly I just don't like going in it because it's hot.
Is it
It's a
no air conditioning in there?
re- oh no, it's a repurposed closet. Well, again, I know people who go out and get studio bricks and put them all together, and
Mm-hmm.
get all the circulation going, and it's like, yeah, nah,
A lot of work.
that's too much. It's
Lot
a
of
lot of
work, a
work.
lot of money. I mean, if you can,
A lot of money. It's like $8,000. It's like, yeah, I can
uh
think of other things to do with my time and my money. So,
yeah. And I'm
but yeah.
sure, and you can achieve the same or similar results, with enough, know-how and,
Well, I mean,
constructing something.
in
So like,
addition to my agent here, I have an agent in New York with a different talent company there called Stewart Talent. And they've been sending me more auditions here because it doesn't matter. I've recorded things from my apartment to Europe, to
really,
like Italy. Yeah, stuff like that.
that's really interesting.
Yeah,
Huh.
you do it through Source Connect or something. It's fun. I like it.
Yeah. And you don't have to
It's
leave
nice
home,
to do
right?
that. Well, you don't have to drive downtown, fight the traffic, pay for parking, any of that stuff anymore, which is fun. You miss seeing the people. Now with the bungee, I mean, with the Halo stuff, we're still going into a studio, which is great.
So
I
you
would
get to see
not like
everyone
it.
at 343 and yeah. No,
Yeah,
I think it's
exactly.
better that way too cuz when you're getting directed or you know
Exactly.
told how like things could go, I just think it'll make a better product in the end.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just, it's fun to, it obviously serves a lot of people. Casting people don't have to rent out rehearsal spaces to cast shows anymore,
Yeah.
because you're doing it from home. So they save themselves a lot in overhead. But what you miss is, if you've ever been an actor, it's like you can feel the temperature of the room. You can feel if they're tired. You can feel if they're ready to go. And you can feel if you've got them. You can feel if you haven't. With this, you're just sending it into the ether, and you may never know what the response was. Did they like it a little bit, a lot? They cast you or they didn't. But, why that happens, you don't necessarily know. It's interesting. It's very different than it
It's
was when I started. The other thing was you also got to see other actors that you knew that had been called into audition as well. So
yeah.
you'd sit in a waiting room with like, 10 other guys, voice actors, and you'd catch up with people and you'd chit chat and stuff, you know. Unlike an audition where you are worried about, am I going to remember the lines I was supposed to memorize? It's like with voiceover, it's on a script. You don't have
Yeah.
to remember that. Great.
Some things gained,
Yeah.
some things lost.
Yeah.
I don't know. I like old school things. I think going in and being more hands on, being able to be directed and feel the room, as you were saying.
I like
I think
yeah,
that
I
would be
like it.
the
I like
preferred
being
way to go in a situation like that.
I like it too, but it's gone, I think.
I mean that
Anything
honestly
else?
that honestly answered one of the question I was going to ask. Like, since Infinite and it being a live service game, do you get to spend more time in the booth and recording sessions with 343 making iconic stuff for the Halo
I have
multiplayer?
been I go in for Halo, I go in for 343, absolutely.
Yeah.
But for many of the other things I've done, it is rare. Oh, I did go in, gosh, it was still we were not quite out of the pandemic, and I recorded for something that I don't think ever came out. It was like a new version of Plants vs. Zombies or something.
Hmm.
Do you know that game, Plants
Yeah.
vs.
Was it
Zombies?
for that
Yeah,
game or? Oh, okay.
yeah, it was. But I don't know that it ever came out. I kept asking my agent, Did this get released?" And he didn't know. So I don't know.
Yeah, maybe it did. I haven't played that game in a very long time, but I
Yeah.
guess.
Well, I
Well,
thought it was very silly. I played a character who had no lines. I was just making weird noises.
oh,
That was
okay.
fun.
Yeah, so maybe it did
I,
get
I,
released. So you
yeah,
probably
I had a
played
good
one of
time.
the zombies.
I'm assuming I was, yes.
Yeah. Nah, that's neat. You've done so much
Yeah.
more than Halo that I didn't even realize was a thing. Maybe I should have done my
Not
research a little
not
bit
many
more,
people
but
do. Not many people do, but it's okay. That's all right. I mean, and the voiceover is just one aspect of, I mean, I've directed 180 plays,
yeah.
professional production. I've run a theater for 5 years. I've acted in, I don't know, a couple of hundred, plays. I've done a little bit of film and TV, loads of commercials, done a lot of stuff.
And a lot
But
more video
everybody does.
games than meets the eyes. You're more than just Halo. You've done so much in your career, and I love just being able to put a spotlight on that. For anybody aspiring to do voice acting or anything similar to that. It's
You do everything. You do everything. Corporate narration, audiobooks, commercials, video games, anything that you can get an audition for and get hired to do, you do it. Number one, because it's fun and more
yeah.
interesting that way. But also, it's like the more you limit what you can or are willing to do, the less likely you probably will be to have any kind of a long career.
Hmm.
And, mine has gone on almost 50 years. So it's like, okay,
And you
this has
never
worked out pretty
know
well.
when you're gonna get that opportunity that just lands on your lap and becomes
Never
so
know.
much more
Never,
than what you ever expected, right?
never know. I mean, who knew
Yeah.
that Halo would end up being, or that I'd be a part of it? I had no clue.
Speaking of
Never
the
saw it coming.
Speaking of the Halos, have you said you haven't played Infinite. Have you played the other games? Were you ever like really into Halo
I
or
have
like
played badly some of the other games, but remember, I never got an Xbox
mm,
because they didn't give one to me. They used to give me the games and they'd say, here's the game for that we just did. And it's like, well, that's great, but are you going to give me an Xbox? They were like, no. So I was dependent on people who had Xboxes to
oh,
play, which means I didn't play very often.
okay.
But, now I go online and I watch other people play, which
Mm,
can be very interesting to kind of figure out, oh, okay, so this is what's going on now.
yeah.
I play a lot more than Steve Downs, who has never played the game.
Really? He's never played any of them, you don't think, no?
Never
Really?
played. Yep.
Really?
Yep.
So you're a bit more of a
Yeah.
gamer in that regard, yeah. So
A bit more.
you never owned an Xbox or an Xbox 360 or any of them?
They never no, because what happened was I started playing computer games because I got a computer
Oh
because I
yeah.
had been asked what for this initial Phantasmagoria, and I thought I should probably know what a computer is because nobody had them. So I got one of these big boxy computers that sit on your desk, and that's where I played all the games originally with the discs in the DVD drive. That's how you
Yeah.
played them, all of that kind of stuff. And then you start putting out the game systems, Well, I've got 2 kids, and they're 2 years apart, so they used to play together, and they wanted to play, so it's like, sure. So we had, Nintendo and, uh, what else? One other one. We had 2. And
PlayStation?
then, PlayStation. Those are the
Yeah.
2 we had.
Very
Yeah.
popular systems
And
back
then
then.
very much so. I mean, they were hugely into, like, Super Mario Brothers, Zelda,
Yeah.
all that stuff. And then, of course, they come along with Xbox, and it's like, I can't afford it. I mean, they were
They were
expensive at
expensive when
that
they
point.
first came out. They really were. That's why I grew up. I
Yeah,
never had the original.
exactly.
Friends of friends, we would play through that. I used to go to, one of my childhood friends down the road, like play Halo 2 campaign with them like all the time.
Yeah,
But it wasn't until
absolutely.
Christmas one year, when Halo 3 dropped, I got the Xbox 360. I got Halo 3, and it was like, oh, that was like probably
Well,
my one Christmas present.
how I got started playing was that I was invited over to a fellow's house who was in a company that I was working with years ago, and it was to have supper with his family and his folks and everything. And I was like, sure, I'll come. I was one of the actors in the company, and I got there and we had a very nice meal. And afterwards, he rather casually said, "Would you like to play a little Halo?" And it's like, oh no, I'd never played at that point.
Oh,
It was a
okay.
long time. So we went down into his basement, and the whole basement was like this. One wall of the basement was the screen on which we were playing. And he
Oh,
had, like, bean bags and all the controllers, and I start off, and I'm playing along, and I
was
end
this
up
Halo
kind of
Combat Evolved, or was this Halo
it
2?
was no, I think it was a little bit later than that, but I think
Might
it
have
might have
been
been 2.
3 or
But
something, or 2.
what ended up happening is I was walking along, and I somehow ended up getting stuck in a corner, and I couldn't get out. I didn't know how to turn myself around, and they killed me. And, it's
Ah.
like it was like, "All right, that's enough of that." But I went back afterwards and, again, it was like if somebody invited me to play, it's like, "Sure, I can try that. That sounds like fun."
Yeah.
So at least I was conversant and had some idea of what was going on, even though, as I said, it was not something I was necessarily told when we were working on the games and got a chance to see it evolve. It got, I always tell people when they say, "Oh, this person needs to practice more, they're not very good." I always say, "Well, they're probably better than I was,"
Yeah.
because I was doing other things as well. So,
So you never really got into like first person shooters too much?
no.
Yeah.
Well, because I was working all the time. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I did not have the time as somebody who I was, as I say, running theaters. I was traveling all over the country to perform in
You
plays
had
and
family.
direct plays. I had a family, well, because, my wife and I divorced after about a decade of being together, and we had these 2 small kids.
Hmm.
So it became fairly important to me to be able to spend as much time with them as I possibly could, which is how I sort of figured out, found out about gaming in the first place because they like to do it.
Yeah.
But then as they grew older, then obviously the time they spent with me was started to evolve as well, so they were going to sports activities and they were doing shows and,
Hanging
they were
out with
doing
their
swimming
friends
lessons.
and stuff, probably, right? Yeah. Typical teenager years, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Wow. That's so interesting. I didn't know that you didn't play Infinite, or haven't had too much time in
I
the
haven't
Halo
played Infinite
games.
yet, but again, what I know about that is simply what I've been able to pick up from looking at it online,
Yeah. Oh, maybe
other
we'll
people
have
play.
to change that sometime. Maybe we'll have to get a gaming session going. Me and Jeff try to play some Halo Infinite. Hear some of your most
Yeah.
iconic voice lines in all of Halo. Which reminds me, last night I was playing and I got a 𝐂𝐿𝐴𝐓, which is the highest
Oh,
medal
yeah.
you can get.
Kill you, you can air. Oh, yeah.
Yes, yes, sir.
Kill you, Nick.
I,
Oh,
I
yeah.
I was very proud. I was like, yes, got one right before I get to talk to the god of multiplayer himself. I just, feels good. I hope I've done right by you, you know.
Absolutely. It's been delight chatting with you. Thank you so much for reaching out. I really, really do appreciate it.
Yeah,
It's
no,
been fun, Gordon.
I would love to do it again sometime. I hope you have safe travels and everything. Um,
Thank you very
maybe we
much.
can do this again
Hope so
sometime.
too.
If you don't mind,
That
real
would be
quick,
great.
could we just spitfire like 5 questions? They could be short answer, real quick. I just had
Sure,
some
sure, sure, sure.
questions from my
Yeah.
community before we part.
Oh, yeah,
So
yeah, 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 yeah.
I just, if they had anything they ever wanted to know about your career or maybe things with Halo, really short, sweet answers,
Sure.
stuff that we never really covered in this. So Whacked
Okay.
wanted to ask, what is your favorite movie?
My favorite movie of all time,
Favorite movie of all time?
Pinocchio, the Walt Disney animated feature.
Really?
Yep.
Okay. Mm.
It is
Wouldn't have expected that.
unbelievably beautiful. It's unbelievably beautiful, and it is terrifying, and it is
Mm.
brilliant storytelling, and they managed to do more in about 72 minutes than Oppenheimer did in over 3 hours. So, yeah,
Well put.
that's my
Well
favorite movie.
put. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's an awesome answer. Another one coming right at you was from 𝐖𝐈𝐓𝐇. She asked, "What is your favorite metal that you voice in Halo and any of the Halos?"
Oh, mm. Uh, uh, uh. Well, the thing that I love to say the most is unfreaking believable.
Yeah.
That's my favorite thing to say. I don't know why, but
No,
it
it's a
always
good
has
one.
been.
And that started
Yeah.
in I believe
Otherwise,
Halo 3.
probably, yeah. Otherwise, probably kill-tacular. I like kill-tacular
Killtac.
a
That one.
lot.
I'm always trying to get higher than that, but I get a lot of Killtaculars. I enjoy that one a lot too. It
I don't know
feels
why I
good.
like it more than a Killionaire, but I do.
My favorite was
Killionaire is fun,
always
but
Kilimanjaro. I don't know what it is about it.
Yara. Yeah,
Sorry, your mic cut out a little bit there, but that's yeah, it's so perfect.
yeah.
Um,
Fun.
it's funny, real quick on the Halo 3. I feel like Halo Reach, the Bungie days, was probably the last time they put unfriggin' believable. But I don't know if it has to do with 343 trying to get away from that rated M for mature or something like that. But that hasn't been in the games
Well,
for probably the past 2 or 3 games
oh,
now.
really?
You
Because
know what
they
it got
always make me
replaced with? I believe that used to be
no.
what you would hear if you got 40 kills without dying in the game. But now
Right?
it's demon. You say demon, like
Demon.
it
Okay.
doesn't have the same effect though. I think unfreaking
At
believable is
all.
like,
At all. No. No. I
yeah.
don't know. That's very interesting. I don't know what the problem is. It's not like I'm, actually using the word. I'm using frickin', and
Yeah,
it's with a
friggin'
K. It's
yeah.
it's it was originally frickin' with a K.
Yeah.
Unfrickin' believable. And then it evolved into unfriggin' believable, but I like K better. It's better to say.
Yeah. No, they both sound amazing. I used to love
Yeah.
that about the older Halos. It is kind of a shame they took that one out, but
I
Killtacular,
know.
I'm gonna remember that. That's cool.
I love saying that.
Art
Yes.
our next question, Art Noob just wanted to know, what was your initial reaction to the success of Halo and what was it like to know that your voice is so iconic?
I didn't know that for the longest time.
Mm.
As I said, it's like I didn't know the game was a big, big hit. I mean, I heard it did well. We did a second one. It was like, oh, okay. When the second one came out and did as well as it did, it was like, what? You know,
Yeah,
but
like you were
it
saying, the
took
sales figures
me
were
it probably took about a dozen years before I encountered anybody who, when they found out what I had done, sort of, their response let me know, oh, I mean, it's even today, it's very, very strange to me in some ways, because
mm.
I don't have the ability to be outside myself and hear myself. So I just hear the voice in my head, and
Yeah.
it's coming out and I'm hearing it. It's like, no, it's fine. But um I realize that it's had because I've heard it from so many people now, a really huge impact. And there have been people who've come up at fan conventions who have basically just stood there shaking, unable to speak. And
Yeah.
it's like, what? Well, no, it's okay, you know.
Yeah.
Or there have been people who said, playing that game, hearing your voice, and what you do got me through this or that horrible experience in my youth. I mean, I've heard that so many times,
I could
which
see it.
is,
I think you play a much bigger
yeah,
role than you think. It's like a dopamine hit when you get
well,
to hear Jeff Steitzer. It's double kill, triple kill,
but
it's just
again, yeah, but again, remember, it's like I'm not in the room with people and
mm,
I'm not privy to what everybody's going through. Do you know what I
yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
So hearing about it now, having people telling me this is what, I mean, I just saw a guy down in Phoenix and, you know, he was in tears telling me what playing the game had meant to him and how it had got him through an abusive household,
Mm.
growing up with parents who were obviously terrible and brutal to him. And, the minute he turned 18, I guess it was, he said he was out of there. He was gone. So,
It's
yeah.
sad to hear things like that, but knowing you
Unbelievably
had an
sad.
impact on people's lives like that, it must be almost surreal. It's very different
It is,
to
it is both incredibly gratifying and unbelievably humbling.
Mhm.
Those are the words I always use, because, I didn't when I was doing it thinking I'm gonna be, changing lives or anything like that.
No,
Never thought
no.
that at
No.
all. The fact that it had that impact, I mean, it makes it automatically perhaps the most important thing I've done in my career.
Mm.
So, that in and of itself is daunting, and, it's also incredibly rewarding to think that something has had that kind of an impact. That's the way I feel about it.
I
I feel
think
so blessed to
I
have done this.
I personally think what you have done extends past Halo as far as multiplayer gaming, just having those iconic lines that you voiced. Like, I don't know who
Mm,
popularized like getting medals in multiplayer or like having an announcer in multiplayer per se, but at the time and still to this day, in my opinion, you were always the best and are the best. And I think that's just it's extended to other games. I don't know if I myself, but like I hear other people like you don't have to be playing Halo. I'll still say like, oh, I got a double kill over here on X, or oh, triple kill. I just took out that whole squad. Like, it doesn't matter what game I'm
yeah,
playing. I'm still using that Halo terminology because it's just like
yeah,
it's so big. It just had such an impact in multiplayer gaming, in my opinion. Like, it's huge. It's huge. I guess moving on to our next
yeah,
question, real quick. There's only like two or three more.
sure.
Arbiter of Chaos
Sure.
83 asks, did you have any creative control over what you said when you're doing recording sessions for the Halo series? Was there ever any improv, or it was all scripted? They
No,
tell you what to say.
all scripted. Yep, all
Interesting.
scripted. What the way Here's the way it would work, because it's kind of interesting. It used to be I'd go into the booth, and the booth was about the size of an old telephone booth. It was small.
Oh wow.
And after a while, you had to get out because it was airless. And
Clammy,
it had a
yeah.
window in it. Yep, had a window in it so I could see the engineer and the writer. That's
So you'd
tended to
be
be the only
staring at
people.
Marty?
No,
Nah.
Marty would only come in to say hello and stick around for a while, but it would be the writer of the copy I was reading,
Yeah.
the representative who had helped, who had been one of the ones who'd written it and they were in charge of the recording session. And then the sound designer, who was generally Jay for the first three games, and it was other
Mm-hmm.
people. Now I don't see the people; I just hear them, which I feel bad
Oh,
about because
there's
I
no
love seeing
windows?
people. There's a window, but they're not on the other side of it. It's a bigger studio that I'm in,
Oh,
and
okay.
they're actually off to my side, so they can see me, I think, on a screen while I'm doing it, but I get just the words, and that's what I do. But the way it worked was in the old days, I would get sheets of paper, and you would go down a list, and they would say, "All right, do give us 3 takes of each line." So it'd be like double kill, double kill, double kill. They
Yeah.
go on to the next one. And you do it all the way down the page. And then they go, okay, on line 16, because all these are on a line and they have a number to them.
Mm.
Can we go out to have three more on 16, three more on 27, and three more on 32 or something like that? Great. All right. Moving on to the next page. You'd throw the other page on the ground and, um, just keep going that way until you'd been through like hundreds of lines.
Yeah.
That's all I did. And sometimes they would say, "Can you make it a little bit?" Marty was very good about sometimes reining me in
Yeah.
because I would get, positively ghoulish in my readings at times, and he would go, "All right, let's just
Turn it
hold. We
down a
don't need quite
notch.
that much, just a notch."
Well, I
That's
think
right.
that's the beauty, like we
Uh,
were saying, of having a director and actually going into the studios and being able to work with people. You're gonna just you work together, you make a better product. It's all hands on deck kind of thing. Like,
I always like to wear headphones because I like to hear my voice, which is, nothing but narcissism. A lot of people they don't want you wearing that because then you're making sounds as opposed to scents.
hmm,
But I always feel like I don't know how I sound. How is this coming across? It's not the way people elsewhere are hearing me, but at least I'm hearing something, so I'm not surprised when the final product comes out and it's like, "Oh my God, is that what I sounded like?" You know.
I'm
So
surprised that they
that's
wouldn't like that. The audio feedback just seems like such a nice feature to almost have.
I love it. I love it. Because it also helps me sort of figure out, okay, I can do a certain amount of adjusting in my head. But the
Mm,
other thing is that, one of the great things they can do is go, okay, Jeff, can you sort of like stay off the mic a little bit? You're clipping, because I'll eat the mic sometimes because I want to get right in, or, and I'll say, all right, that's good.
yeah.
It's an interesting, I love it. It's the best work in the world because you only have to get it right once. Unlike a play where you have to do it 8 times a week for anywhere from like a month to when I did Mary Poppins on Broadway, I was there for a year and a half. That's a
Really.
long time. Oh
And then
yeah.
when it comes to the live performance, you gotta hope you like stick the landing, like kind of deal when it
Every
comes.
night. That's what you do, yeah. And the
Ah,
difference is that what you're doing is also dependent on other actors who are there on stage with you, but also the audience. As a
mm,
group, you've got to know how to basically play the audience.
mm,
That isn't true of this. This is just, I'm going to keep throwing stuff at you. You tell me what you like, you know?
yeah, yeah. S- Definitely sounds a little easier than honestly doing theater and stuff like that.
Much easier. And the money is
Yeah.
so much better.
Oh, who would have thought? That's
I was doing I'm not gonna use necessarily well, maybe I was doing a show in Hartford, Connecticut, as I say, Kiss Me Kate. And I got a call one day from my agent in Seattle saying they want you to go into a studio there in Hartford and do some pickups, some recording for the last Halo gig you did. And it was like, okay. So they had rented the space. I had to find it. I think I took a cab to get there. Maybe I used the company car that I was sharing with a couple of actors and parked my car, went inside, met the people who were very nice, seemed to know who I was, which was, again, always so strange. And then we went in to record, and I think I spent 15 minutes recording. Everything they needed, I got in 15 minutes.
huh.
At the end of which time they were like, "Well, that's all we needed, and thank you very much." And it's like, okie dokie. And I made more money in those 15 minutes than I would eventually make in the 2 months that I was doing this play.
And that was for a
So
Halo
2 months.
game or like a personal project or something?
It was the Halo. It was a Halo game. It was the Halo. It was Halo, and I
Wow.
made more money in 15 minutes than I would make in 60 days of rehearsing and performing.
And you casted that in Hartford? You were saying like for
I didn't cast it. What happened was they just called because I'd already done it,
Oh,
I
so
mean,
this
I
was
was
for
the
like
announcer.
Halo 2 or something, like a
Oh no,
sequel.
this was like Halo 5.
Really?
This was like Halo 5. Oh yeah, something like that.
Semi
I was out
recently,
of
yeah.
town. Well, what happens? Yeah, this was back in
Oh,
2015.
right. So they have you record at a
What did
studio that can send, Seattle,
I
send
had? Well,
343 what
here's
they
the way it
need.
works. Here's the way it works. So, for instance, with Halo Infinite, the first day that I went in to work on the show would have been in March 2020.
Yeah,
That
they
was
do
that
have.
game.
Okay.
All right. Now, remember, a week later, this is March 2020, we're in lockdown.
Oh,
So
yeah,
we
you're
can't do
right.
any more recording. We can't do any more recording for a year. I don't go back into a studio till I believe it was January of 2021.
Wow.
And then I finally get called in at the last minute in October, right before it's my understanding the game is coming out, to do some more recording for the game. There were some other things they wanted me to do. So I've recorded now on 3 separate occasions. When back in 2015, whichever game it was, I think it must have been Halo 5.
Yeah, yeah,
Must have been.
that must have been 5. That's
But I was
oh, sorry not to cut you off. It's so interesting that
that's how it works.
that's last
So
minute.
what happened was, yeah,
Like
that
cuz
happens
the
all the
game
time.
Infinite came out, they shadow dropped it or released it early, the multiplayer which you're a part of,
Yeah.
literally
Yeah.
mid-November, like November 15th. So
That's
they had
exactly
like a
why being
month to
called into the
crunch that
studio.
in.
Exactly. Exactly. Isn't that crazy?
That is crazy,
But
actually.
that's exactly what happened. And, basically that's what the case was when I was doing the job in Hartford. I'd already recorded and they wanted to redo some things and add some things. And so I went to Hartford, I mean to the recording studio in Hartford. I was on the telephone with somebody back in Seattle
Hmm.
from 343. And so they were saying, okay, Jeff, here's what we want to do. They printed out the copy for me at this studio that they wanted me to read. And so I did the same thing there, but long distance. It was a patch.
Hmm.
They patched us in. So they're in Seattle. I'm in Hartford. We have a session, 15 minutes long. And that's how much I made. More than the
More than
play that I
doing
had done. Yep.
uh
Absolutely.
I'm not surprised because the video game industry most literally seems like it prints money. It's just there's so much money going around with it. And I'm
Well,
happy
it's
to know
gotten
it.
so
Hopefully you get paid what you rightfully deserve too, because you
no, I
know,
don't. I don't
no.
think I am being paid what I rightfully deserve. No, I'm never going to believe that, because I just, of course, I could always be paid more. But
True. You're true.
it's interesting because if you do a film or TV, right, and they show it more than once, you get a residual, and that means that you get checks every time. It's good for like 13 weeks or whatever. And then after 13 weeks, or, if it comes back the next year, they pay you again. Now it'll be
Oh.
less and less as you go. But, so I've gotten residual checks for like 3 cents, literally, for something I did 30 years ago.
That's okay. That's
But
interesting.
when the games were first being dealt with by our union, they didn't take them seriously. So they didn't ask for any sort of residual. I'm like, we're all of us who did Halo. We're like those people who did TV back in the 50s before they started giving performers residuals. Many of the people who did TV, like I Love Lucy and stuff like that, they got paid to do the show and they never saw another cent. Now we're talking about shows that are still playing today, right?
Yeah.
Had
Yeah.
they been getting residuals, they would have been multimillionaires. They didn't get that money. Many of them died in poverty. I'm not going to die in poverty, but we didn't have residuals. And now games offer, some of them do anyway, at least what I've been told, are offering residuals. And it's like, well, can I go back in time and renegotiate my contract?
Oh my god,
But
especially if only, right? Because of how big Halo
right?
was, I think
But
that
I
that
thought I
could be
saw that
life changing, really, money
uh,
wise.
there was one there was one point where, oh my God, I'll never forget it. I every once in a while I go on and Google myself just to see, what people are saying. And again, narcissist. And somebody had on something they said, how much money has Jeff Steitzer earned on Halo? And somebody with great authority said, $300 million. So I joined a group so I could go on there and say, I am Jeff Steitzer, and I have made nowhere near three
Yeah,
hundred
like
million dollars, if only.
that
But
is a lot.
nice thought.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
even I know nothing about like how pay grades go for levels of voice acting or acting in general, but 300,000, especially back like, watching Halo become a game and going through sequels.
Exactly.
You really can't
Exactly.
imagine that like per se. That is interesting though.
Not
Last two
what
real
are the
quick.
questions you have?
The Red
Shoot.
Gear wanted to know if you could get any role in any entertainment product, whether it be a video game or a movie, what role would that be and why? Even if that role has already been filled. So if like you could have been the
Oh,
Terminator or something like that, right?
right.
Or anything coming up, anything in general.
Yeah, I don't think most actors deal in that kind of a what if situation. We have to, just to save our sanity, think in terms of, what what was I offered? What was I allowed to audition for? That kind of a thing. So I don't have any sort of sense. People have asked me that about stage roles. What roles do you want to play? And it was like, oh God, I don't know. I probably won't know until somebody offers it to me. And that's
Hmm.
kind of the way I feel about this. Um, Part of the problem with wanting to have a role that's already been done is that you want it because you love it because of the way it was done originally. There's no reason to think I could do it better. A good example, I look, for instance, at the voice actor who is the voice of the fox in Pinocchio. It's like, well, I couldn't begin to do it any better than he did it. So it's like, even though that's a role that would be fun to do because he was a villain and a rapscallion. It's like
Yeah.
I could do it better. So I don't really have a good answer for that at
It makes
all.
sense though.
Yeah. Um.
Never been
Yeah.
a
The role I want to do is the next role that somebody offers me that's interesting.
Hmm. Well,
That would be what I would like.
that makes
Yeah.
sense. You just go
It
with the
isn't so
flow.
much
You
for.
never, yeah. No, that's cool.
Well, because I've been reading a book about all these different performers, male and female, who do musicals, and they talk about all the things they turned down or missed out on or auditioned for and didn't get. And you can see it's like they just can't think about what might have been because it's never going to be, you know?
Yeah.
So it isn't a case of like, I wish if I could go back in time, I'd want to play that role. It's like, no. You might want to, you might think, oh, I'd love to be on a film set with Orson Welles when he was making Citizen Kane. But again, the problem with doing a film is that unless you're the star and you're doing, Ocean's 11 and you're one of the people that, if you're Brad Pitt, you get to hang around everybody, you're in a lot of scenes. But
Mm.
if you're Carl Reiner, you may only work for a month on a film that, took several months to shoot. It always feels like they're in movies more than they are. That's the weird thing about films. I've done films and stuff, but I never feel like I ever show up in them because I'm on the set so infrequently. I was on a
Right.
TV series, Fugitive, and it's like I popped up in a number of episodes. I had a recurring character. It was great fun.
Oh yeah.
That's actually a character to go back and do. I'd love to do that guy some more, but we
On
didn't
The
get picked up.
Fugitive. Oh.
Yeah, with Tim Daly and Michael T. Williamson. I got to spend all my time with Bubba Gump, that
Yeah.
actor,
Huh.
and he was fantastic. That was great. I love that.
Yeah, that must have been
I
a
just
ton of
love doing the
fun.
role. Ton of fun.
And
Yeah.
and
As far
like
as theater is concerned, nothing. I have no
never
interest in
video games. It
place.
never and it sounds like you didn't really, just get that in your headspace. You didn't want to be like, oh man, I missed out on this,
I take it
opportunity.
back.
Or
You know what I would love to do? I would have loved to have played a character, a real character in Halo. I would have loved to have played like probably an alien in
really,
in Halo. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Some really despicable creature. Like the
yeah,
one that takes me over in infection, you
yeah,
know? And
yeah,
it's like, ooh, that would be fun. But nope, that's just not the way it worked out. But that would be
yeah.
fun. I'd love to play a villain. Yeah.
I think you would do a
They get all the
fantastic
best
job.
lines. They're the most fun,
Yeah.
they're oh yes, they're just I mean, that would be fun.
I could actually see a world where that probably could have been a thing too. Like that would be I think that would be a lot of fun. And
Yeah, I was
it
asked by Francis, like, are you gonna be in the Halo TV show? And I said, "No, it's just not the way it's set up." I said, "I don't see why. I don't see why it couldn't be like Whoopi Goldberg used to be on Star Trek. Every once in a while, Master Chief has to go and get a drink in the cantina, and there I would be,
oh, that would
And I
be
said, "Hey,
so
Chief, how's it
cool.
going?" Oh, that's
You
incredible.
have they need to
Spectacular. And
some
then they go on to the story already in progress, but nobody it hasn't occurred to anybody.
wow,
It'd be a hoot.
if any of the show writers for some reason stumble across this, get a scene with Jeff Steitzer in there. You have no idea how much Halo fans would absolutely love that. I could see you just like a bartender cleaning the glass behind the counter
Absolutely,
in
and
a
I'm just
space
sitting there having
station
a
or
cup.
something.
Hey.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Exactly.
Even if it
Exactly.
was
Yeah.
just like two lines or something with Chief and
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah, that's right.
your
That's right.
voice is that
It's like everyone
iconic. I think it would just be oh, that is such a good idea, Jeff.
but again, nobody asked me, so there you go.
Ah.
What else? You said you had one more question?
One
Say
more
one more?
question. This is from my longtime best friend. We grew up together playing Halo. Jason asks, "Are there any cool recorded
Hey, Dave.
lines that you have done that were cut from the final game? Any of them that you can
Oh, yeah.
recall? Things that you really enjoyed that
Mm.
didn't make the cut?"
Yeah. Yeah, the one that pops out is the one that was one of my favorite lines, and we laughed our asses off when we did it. Years and years and years ago, Dick Cheney was out hunting. I've told this story many times.
Yeah, I've
It's
heard
true. He
I've
was
heard the
out
story.
hunting, yeah, with his friends, and he shot one of the people in the face. I think it was Merrick Garland. I could be wrong, but I think it might have been Merrick Garland. And he shot him, and it was just like, Jesus Christ. This guy shot somebody in the face. So somebody thought it would be amusing. One of the writers on one of the Halos thought it would be very funny if when you ended up shooting one of your own teammates, you heard my voice shouting out, Cheney Mania. And so we did that and we were laughing. They're going, do it again, do it again. It's like, all right, Cheney Mania. It was so much fun to do. Well, somewhere along the line, and it was supposed to be hidden. So it only popped up every once in a while. It didn't automatically happen.
Yeah.
So, it was just sort of a little Easter egg kind of a thing that would pop up. And somebody
Upstairs.
upstairs got wind of it and went, no,
Yeah,
that's not going to happen.
that can't go in the game. But
So that was the line. Yeah, that was the line that I was always. Other than that, I have no reason to think that most of what we didn't end up in the game, but I
right.
don't know. Again, we're talking about hundreds and hundreds of phrases, words, lines. You know, I can't begin to, and they wouldn't let me take the script home, of course.
Mm,
So I don't have a record of anything I've said except what's on the game.
yeah.
There may be many, many lines they went, yeah, because they wanted often variety of things and we'll try this, 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 but what actually ended up and what I recorded are often very different things.
That makes sense. I was always surprised at like what did make it into the games or like what was talked about between developers and stuff. I always I mean, I guess it's kind of morbid, but like whenever you would jump off the map or somehow get yourself killed in the video game, you would say suicide like and
Yeah.
that always stuck with me. It's such an honest it's stuff like that. It's like maybe it's morbid, I don't know, but I think it just adds such a nice layer to the game. I always thought it was fun. Like Just any
Yeah,
of your voice lines are so fun. Is that the only
and
one that ever really
I
stuck out
know
to you, or?
I can't think of any others right offhand, but because again, it's just too many, too many lines. I did with the zombie killing spree and all of that stuff. I love that.
Uh,
Brains. I love saying that.
yeah,
That was, but no, I can't off the top of my head think about a lot of stuff. We're talking about 23 years, remember?
I know,
So
I know.
that's
I've
having to go
heard
dig around in this old brain pan. Quite a few layers.
the only other I've heard this story from some other interview or talk that you've had that's circled around the internet. It was I believe another line that you really liked, but I don't think it made it into the game was "You suck." And it was just like
Yeah, that was
"You
another line.
suck."
Yeah, and the only reason I don't do it now, this is what's so weird. So many of the things that didn't make it, it's like it's like what's wrong with that?
I know
There's so many
that one
more
really doesn't.
horrible things that you could say. And in that case, I don't understand because it's in such common usage,
Yeah, it's
that
not.
sucks and this and that's like, you know.
They've
So I don't know. I don't know why they said no to that, but because they said no to it, it's one of the things I don't say when I do cameos. It's like I always feel badly, but it's like I just can't say that because Microsoft decided a long time ago they didn't want that associated with the game. So I'm, not
really
going to
because
try and slip
I
it in
thought
there.
I've seen a lot of your cameo work. Isn't it, you don't you usually end it by saying always stay unfriggin' believable or you something
Oh,
you don't
that I
use
say.
anymore?
No, but but see, I wasn't even aware that Unfreaking Believable was something they didn't use in the game anymore. I
There's
didn't know
quite a
that.
few things they don't use anymore that were honestly in for a decade. It was like what made Halo. The suicide line, that's not in the games anymore.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, which
yeah. No,
that
I'm
one
not
I could
aware.
understand, but like unfriggin' believable. It's not like you're saying it's not that
I
bad. That sounds
get,
PG-13 to
I
me.
do. Absolutely. It's like frickin'. I mean, please, that's
Yeah.
tiptoeing around the subject, and even if it weren't, if you were saying the actual word, it's like I still don't see what the problem is. But, I'm 72, well, I'll be 72 years old, and there isn't much that I, shy away from personally.
Hmm.
But when I'm working in my capacity as a representative of the game, I have to be a little bit more discreet, is the way I look at it.
And what was the thing? The what?
Yeah.
Which line that you don't use in cameos anymore because Microsoft doesn't like it? Was it the "you suck" thing or?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's the
yeah,
one I don't use. I don't say sucks. Yeah, and a lot of them, it's like, oh, can you say this person or that person sucks? And it's just like, I can't,
yeah. You don't
because
want
again,
to.
just don't want to cause any sort of embarrassment to them or go against, what they might consider, appropriate.
Right. I've always thought it's some of the most wholesome content that you make. I don't even know the people that these messages are going out to half the time, but they honestly just warm my heart, Jeff. They're just like you're just so
Oh, thank
iconic
you.
in I think the way that you talk to people and go about doing even just the cameo recordings and whatnot, it's just fan friggin' tastic. Yeah, there's a new one.
I love to do it. I have to tell you, it's one of my favorite things to do.
And is there
And the only
ever
thing that would
any?
make it better,
Oh no, sorry. What would make
the
it
only
better?
thing that would make it better would be as if there was more, if it was more two-way. Do you know what I mean?
Kind of like
I there
this
there
right
used
here
to be a
now.
point. Exactly right.
Hmm.
Exactly right. Where people could ask me about things or say things and I would be able to do it.
I'm
They
surprised
used to
there's not
have that.
that.
They used to have it on Cameo. They discontinued it. I don't know why. Somebody literally just asked me about it like 2 days ago. And it's like,
Hmm.
I don't know why they did it. They just did. So when I get to meet the fans at the fan conventions, I love seeing who's on the other end of these requests.
Hmm.
It's like this person that asked me to, roast their friend or wish their
Yeah.
girlfriend. birthday, or I'd love to know because I'm really, really fascinated by people in general. And I'm so fascinated by the people who've embraced this world that, I've been a part of, been lucky enough to be a part of. So,
Yeah. And is there ever like do you ever have to turn some of them down? Do they
yeah,
ask you to like say stuff that's just you're like, I can't say that can't be
yes, yes,
recorded, like
yes, yeah. That has happened on numerous occasions, and sometimes they'll come back and say, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to, offend anybody or offend you." And I'll say, if you can come up with some things to say that are not, that are more PG and aren't going to be perceived as offensive, we may be able to talk. And sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't. And sometimes it's just, the way you'd hear people talking in a locker room. It's kind of like, "Oh, for God's sake," or after
I know
they've had
they have you say vulgar stuff, I'm
too many
sure.
beers, it's like, Jesus, come on. So,
So you usually shy
anyway,
away
yeah,
from that, yeah. That makes a lot of
oh, yeah.
sense.
Oh, yeah.
That makes a
Yeah.
lot of
I
sense.
mean, I hate being put in that position because it's like, I can't do it. I can't go running around, swearing or saying really vulgar things or things that are in any way, misogynistic and racist. And I've had requests to say stuff like that. And it's like, first of all, I wouldn't do it. I mean, just,
That's
you know,
that's
I'm
horrible,
not doing it.
honestly, yeah.
And it's
Ah.
one of those things where, they might have joked about it and thought it was so funny. Wouldn't it be funny if we got him to say it? But it's like, yeah, I can't do that. There have been some times when I mean, I go and I'm getting very, very well acquainted with the Urban Dictionary because
Mm.
sometimes people will say something that sounds a little suspect, isn't, and then I'll check it out and just go, yeah, it was.
It's like a made
Why?
up term between like
It's something
people.
it's a vulgar term that I don't recognize because I'm almost 72 years old and don't know all the slang and stuff, and it's like, "Oh, yeah, no, I can't say that."
Trying to get you to say something like nasty almost, like
That's that's
it's
exactly
not
right.
good for
That's
anyone
exactly
really.
right.
I know someone somewhere finds it funny or whatever, but I mean it's definitely for the better that you turn those down, I suppose. So, it's
I like to think so. Yeah, it
yeah.
should be fun. And no, I mean, the thing is, if they were not going out into the world, as they very often do, people love to post them, and it's like, well, in that case, yeah, everybody's going to see it. I don't want people thinking they can, have me say anything because I won't.
Yeah. No, that makes a
You
ton of
know,
sense. It really does.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna have to book you on Cameo sometime. We'll get you to say some very PG and fun things and stuff for my
I would
live
love to
streams or
do that.
YouTube videos.
Anybody who wants to can book me. That's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Well, listen, thank you so much, Gordon, for reaching out. This has been a treat.
Re-
It's
uh,
nice to sort of figure out how to really make Discord work. It's like, oh, okay, this is cool.
yeah, I was totally
Um,
willing to help you out, and it's honestly, it's kind of surreal. I'm just happy that when I reached out, we've had nice conversations, and you were willing to do this with someone like me. I've been making Halo content for a couple years now, and even though I'm one of the smaller guys on the scale of people who've been in the Halo community, it's really cool to get the opportunity to speak with the iconic God voice multiplayer announcer of Halo, Jeff Steitzer.
well,
What a pleasure. And
thank
hopefully
you,
we can
man.
do something again sometime. Maybe, who knows? Maybe if this is a
Absolutely.
hit,
I
I'll have
mean,
to get you to play Halo with me sometime, and
people always say it's like, how come you haven't done it before? It's like nobody asked.
yeah.
I rarely ever say no. It's like normally it's like, yeah, sure, I'll talk to you.
Yeah.
Podcasts, things like that. It's like I'm around, and it's I feel like it's a thing I can do and give back a little bit, and I'm happy to do it.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. That's awesome. You heard that? You heard that here, folks. Freaking, we're gonna get Jeff to play some Halo. We'll see if you can get some of your iconic voice lines to come over on your side. Hear what you sound
Yeah,
like in game.
we might be able to do the voice lines. Playing Halo. It's like we'll see.
Nah, I'm playing with him. I'm playing
Anyway,
with him. But it's been a pleasure,
yeah.
And I appreciate you. You
For me
gave me
too.
so much time. Little hectic. I hope I didn't, take up too much of your time. And yeah, it's just been a pleasure,
It's
man.
fine, man.
And
Okay.
yeah. Well, hey, we'll keep in touch. Maybe I'll see you at Worlds next year or something like that. Or if you're ever in the area, maybe if there's a convention I can catch here out in Boston or something.
Absolutely. That would be great. I'd
Yeah.
love to go to Boston. That would be
Yeah, Boston's pretty
great.
nice. It's a nice city.
Yeah, indeed. All right. I'm going to have to run, but it's great talking to you. Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
Well, hey,
Take care.
until next time, right? Take it easy, Jeff.
All
Have a
right.
good night.
Absolutely. Till next time.
Till next time. There we go. Yeah, see that? There'll be another. We'll have to see how this
There
does.
will.
All right.
Okay, man.
All right, take it easy. Bye now. Well, that was insane. I thought maybe me and Jeff would talk for half an hour to an hour, but that was just like the most pleasant 2 hour interview. Actually my first ever interview with somebody, and I know I didn't get to cover all of my questions and points over in the full list. I got, the community questions in there at the end, and that was surely a ton of fun. I think it's really cool to look back on Jeff Steitzer's career and, just the sheer impact that he's had on gaming as a whole, or maybe voice acting as a whole. It's really incredible stuff, and I appreciate Jeff for, again, taking the time. And this upload's going to be a massive one. I think we're going to just get it all out there and see what happens. If I can, pardon my language, but a 2 hour video on the channel, that's surely different than the content that we usually make here. But if this is something that you guys enjoyed, do me a favor, like, comment, subscribe, share this with your friends. And yeah, maybe we can get some of these other questions that I missed, or if you guys have any questions from down, put them in the comment section. And like I said, we'll have to do this again sometime with Jeff, and we'll see where it goes. So my dog's ready to eat some dinner and go play. He's playing with me right now, so I will catch you guys in the next one. Keep an eye out, sub, all that fun stuff.